All right, everybody, we are to Thursday, April 2nd. So we are in day 2 of week 12. This is going to be another quick lecture to kind of go over what you will be doing for today. So you'll have 3 activities again. This week we're going to be focusing on kind of source use and also moving our research questions to a thesis statement to prepare us to write our introduction for next week. So let's start at the beginning and talk about activity 1 that you'll be doing. So you're going to need to read documenting sources in your textbook. That's 479 to 497. This is kind of a list of all the sources and showing you how to cite them, in-text citation, and how to make a works cited page entry. So it sounds like a lot of reading, but you're basically going to kind of skim it to find the sources that you'll be using. So the first thing I want you to do is kind of browse through that, read the pieces that are actually, the actual full paragraphs, and then look for all of the examples of the sources you're going to be using and make a list of every single source type that you have so far that you're going to use in your essay. So list it out, right? So if it's an organization website or a Twitter page or a Facebook page or an article from an online publication, an article from a magazine. Make a list, 1 through 7, whatever they are, and list them out. After you've listed them out, I want you to create an MLA works cited entry for each of your sources using your textbook to guide you along. It takes you step by step, telling you everything you need to do for any kind of entry. So go ahead and make that works cited entry for each of the sources that you have right now. And look at that, you just finished your works cited page. So you have one of the most tedious parts of the essay finished, your works cited page. Be sure that you submit that to Canvas, to the Dropbox, so I can see it, and so you'll have it when you're ready to go. All right, so let's talk really quickly about using interview material. This isn't so much an activity that you're doing, but I do think that it's a question that a lot of you probably have, and I feel like a few people actually asked me when we were having face-to-face classes. So how do you use interview material? So say that you did actually luck out and you got an online interview or you got a phone call interview. You use the interview material just like you would any other source, like information from an article, from a scholarly article, or just an online article or a blog post. You're going to weave it in just like you would any other source. I do not want you to say, when I sat down with an interview with the director, I asked them da-da-da-da, and they told me da-da-da-da. That is not weaving it in. I don't need a play-by-play of how your interview went. You gather that information so you can weave it into your paper just like you will any other source. So this is an example that I have up on the PowerPoint right now from a previous student. And this is from his actual face-to-face interview. So it demonstrates how he actually wove it in just like he would any other source material. So he says, not only does the Curbside Chronicle boost progress by offering jobs for people experiencing homelessness, it also documents what Curbside Chronicle editor Nathan Pope calls, quote, the end of homelessness in Oklahoma City, end quote. So notice he took a bit of what the person said, his interviewee, and he put it in there where it was needed. He does it again at the end of this, and he just uses a piece of his quote. Quote, a team of caseworkers that are helping people get housed, connecting them to mental health services, connection, I'm sure that's supposed to be connecting them to doctors, and everything, end quote. So notice that it is integrated fully into his actual text, his own words, just like he would do if you were using an article entry. That is how you use interview material. Below this is what the works cited entry looks like for a personal interview. It's just the last name of the person, comma, space, the first name of the person, period, personal interview, period, and then the date in MLA format. That's all it is. Super simple. Be sure you do that though. I have a lot of people that don't cite their interviews. It is also source. I need to know where it came from, so be sure that you include that in your works cited page. All right, so let's hop over to the next activity, and that is source practice, which has a post and response. So this one, I'm not going to read it all because we'll all be bored with that. You can read it in Canvas. All the directions are there. But you have 5 different steps to go through for step 1. This is basically you're going to practice doing in-text citation with different kind of source material. So you're going to create that, like a mock in-text citation for 1 through 5. So that's your first step, is to fully integrate these and show what they look like when you're weaving them into text, so you can practice doing that effectively. Step 2 is you're going to respond to 2 peers, not 1, but 2 peers. Take a look at the way that they have integrated. See if you see any problems that you can say, actually, you need to put the period in this place, or actually you need to be sure and quote that, or you didn't do an in-text citation, parenthetical citation, so I can't tell what source that came from. Just basically correct any issues you see. If you don't see any issues, then you can say all of these look great, but I'm going to be looking over them to make sure that you actually took a look at each of them and gave suggestions if there are a little bit of flaws here and there. So basically, you are going to help one another polish up on your source integration with different kinds of sources, right? I got a Twitter account, a personal interview, a news article. So you have, and then one of your own online sources, so a source that you already have. I have a couple of provided sources. If you have any trouble getting to those, please let me know. Canvas can be weird about that sometimes. But otherwise, this is what I want you to do for this one, so you can practice really using sources correctly and effectively. All right, and then activity 3 is when we're going to move into our thesis statements. So we're going to hop back and look at the research questions that you should have written before we left for spring break about your specific organization, and you are going to turn it into a thesis statement. So this also is a 3-step assignment. So step 1 is I want you to make a list of what a good thesis statement needs to include. Step 2 is you're going to go back and review the questions you have asked so far and use these and draft a nuanced thesis statement that kind of answers your question, that can be an anchor for the essay. And step 3 is you're going to choose just one peer who does not yet have feedback, so look for someone who doesn't have feedback, and help them improve their thesis statements doing the following. Answer the question, does the thesis move past a generic claim? How can it be made more nuanced? Does the thesis connect the organization's value to the social issue in action? And on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate the thesis statement right now? Why have you given it this score? So those are the 3 things I want you to respond. So you're going to post a list of what makes a good thesis statement, your own nuanced thesis statement that you will use to anchor your own paper, and then you'll respond to one peer using those 3 questions to really guide you and give them good feedback. And to help you answer step 1 here, a good thesis statement, especially for this assignment, should explain the key argument of the essay. It needs to be nuanced enough to capture the reason for the essay. It needs to be specific. It needs to be concise enough that it can be in only 1, maybe 2 sentences. For this specific essay, it needs to include both the organization and the value. And a really good thesis for this essay is going to connect the value to the actions, issue, and organization's approach to the issue. So these, hint, hint, might be the answer to step number 1 of activity 3, are how we really make sure we're drafting solid thesis statements that will come within our introductions once we start to draft. So remember, you want this to be specific but nuanced, right? So let's bring this down to the ground. I don't want a thesis statement that says the Homeless Alliance core value is possibility, and that's it, right? That doesn't tell me why you think that. It doesn't give me a grounding in how the whole essay is going to go about it. It doesn't connect the different facets. So be sure you move beyond something too basic and generic, that it really sets up the whole tone and argument of the essay, right? And the way that you do that is you don't just say, the Homeless Alliance core value is possibility. You connect the value to the actions, to the issue, and to the very specific approach or origin, right, that the organization uses. So be sure that you're kind of walking that balance between, being concise, but also being nuanced enough to really capture the entire complexity of the organization and its value. So here's a quick example of how I moved from my research question to a thesis. So I changed my research question a couple of times as I went, and this is the one that I kind of ended up with. And it was, what does the vast number of issues that the Homeless Alliance takes up suggest about what kind of impact they want to make on both the homeless population and society in a broader sense? I looked across all my research analysis, the notes that I made on my research. That's why we did it right, so we can say, how does this answer this question? What my thesis statement ended up being is, through its work with over 100 statewide organizations to make sure that every single person in the OKC area overcomes homelessness, an issue that many view as impossible to solve, the Homeless Alliance demonstrates an unwavering value of possibility in all they do. Their origin, approach to homelessness, and refusal to give up on anybody proves that they truly do not believe any issue is impossible to solve. So mine is a couple of sentences, and I might be able to knock off their origin and approach and that just be a part of it. But notice in the first part, I connect, right? Their collaboration with 100 organizations, their focus that every single person overcomes homelessness, and I connect it to that value of possibility in all that they do. So this is the kind of thesis statement that I'm looking for. So as you're working on yours, see the way that you can bring these things together, right? Very specific details of the organization that set them apart from all the other organizations that take up the same cause, that you can connect to that value. All right, that's all I have for you for today. So be sure that you get all your work in. Be sure that you do not put off doing your homework this week, since we have responses to do also with these activities. And if you have any questions at all, as always, shoot me an email and I will help you out.